Not a single day goes by where I get a comment on one of my platforms somewhere where somebody will be like, condos in Langley should be $200,000. They should be $250,000. They should be $300,000 or something along the lines of that, right? Now, I'm not saying that that is impossible, but in this video, I'm going to show you why that is very, very unlikely. Okay, so stories.com did this article on why construction costs are higher in Vancouver than Toronto. And in fact, they're higher than everywhere else in Canada. So let's get into this. So in late March, commercial real estate services company Altus Group published their annual Canadian cost guide looking at construction costs across the country. This year's report was based on proprietary cost data from over 6,200 projects, residential, commercial, and infrastructure. And the costs are broken down by both local and asset type, location and asset type. The guide factors in only hard construction costs, which means costs associated with site servicing, consultants, and development charges are not included. The costs outlined in the guide are a reflection of a moment in time that can serve as a benchmark rather than a forecast, but very notably, the cost ranges as cost per square foot for Vancouver are higher than those in every other market included in the report, almost across the board, regardless of residential building type. It is also generally true for most commercial building types. For concrete high-rise buildings between 13 and 39 stories, one of the more common building forms in Metro Vancouver, the construction cost ranges from $360 to $455 per square foot in every other market, including the GTA, and the low end is closer in every other market, including the GTA. The low end is closer to $300, and the high end is well below $400 a square foot. For 6-story wood frame buildings up to 6 stories, another very common building form in Metro Vancouver, the construction cost ranges from $275 to $365 per square foot. Again, both the low end and high end are higher than those in every other market. In fact, the only instance where construction costs exceeded that of Vancouver was townhomes in the GTA. Their construction costs for 3-story stacked townhomes started around $230 per square foot, which is just slightly higher than the $225 in Vancouver. Although the high end for Vancouver remains higher, for now, townhouses and single-family homes, the low ends for the GTA are about level with Vancouver. So let's get into this chart. So let's start with 40 to 60 stories, which would be your concrete high-rise. So in Vancouver, you're $360 per square foot on the low end, all the way up to $480. $310 in Calgary, up to $365. So already on the high end, you're $115 per square foot lower in Calgary than you are in Vancouver. However, Vancouver does have a lot of luxury high rises. So let's use the low end. You're $50 per square foot cheaper in Calgary than you are in Vancouver. Edmonton, same as Calgary. Winnipeg, basically the same. GTA, you're $330 to $410 in comparison to $360 to $480 in Vancouver. And then we have Montreal is only $310 to $355. I think that's the cheapest. Yeah, that is the cheapest. That's cheaper than Ontario or than Ottawa, GTA, Winnipeg. It's the same as Winnipeg. Oh, it's slightly cheaper than Winnipeg on the high end, $355 versus $360. So Montreal, cheapest place to build a concrete high rise. So when we get into, let's just say, let's look at custom built single family. So that's $495 to $1,250. Single family residential with unfinished basement is $200 to $320. Do they just have single family on here? Like, where's just single family? I guess they don't have single family, but I remember I did the luxury tour of that house in Abbotsford. And in that video, I said it's like at least, probably around $300 per square foot to build. And I got a comment that was like, it costs $200 per square foot to build. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you can find somebody to build that for $200 per square foot. I probably wouldn't pay somebody $200 per square foot to build that. I'd probably pay $300 per square foot to build that. And being in that home, seeing the finishes, it was well done. It looked like it was. It looked like they would have paid on the higher end per square foot to build that home. But a custom built single family home is starting at $495 per square foot. So I don't know if you'd call that a custom build. But I think $300 per square foot is pretty safe to say that would be like the rough cost to build the home that was pictured in that video. And I was saying that just to build that house, it was like 5,000 square feet, probably would have been like $1.4 million just to build it. And it was listed at 1.8 or 1.9, right? So highly doubt the builder's making money on that. Now let's revisit this. Here we go, up to 6-story wood frame condo, because I did a video that was like, hey, if you buy an 800 square foot condo in Langley, the cheapest you're going to get that pre-sale right now is like $610,000. And that's Solana, right? So I've been screaming from the rooftops. If you want a 2-bedroom pre-sale condo, that's what you should buy. Because now every other project in that area, by the way, their 2 bedrooms are, well, there's one down the street where I think you can get a 2-bed for like $670 or something like that. But everything launching now, as of right now, is over $700,000 for a 2-bed in Langley, right? So $600 was a pretty good deal at that time. But anyways, so we have up to 6-story wood frame condo in Vancouver on the low end, you're $275 to $365, Calgary $235 to $345, Edmonton all the way down at $230 to $345, $225 in Winnipeg to $340. Where is it cheapest? Montreal, again, only $210 in Montreal to build on the low end a 6-story wood frame. Now, let's do the math on this, okay? So just to construct the wood frame building, let's say we have an 850 square foot 2-bed condo, okay? Let's use the low end, 275 times 850. 233,000, right? So people are out there saying, well, condo should be 250,000. Okay, so just to construct the wood frame building, we're at 233,000. However, we have to build an underground parkade at $170 a square foot, right? So we have 275 plus 170 on the low end times 850. So you're already at $378,000 to build that 2-bedroom condo in Langley, right? Now, that is excluding taxes, holding costs, fees with the city, commissions for the realtors, and then obviously profit for the developers. So that's how you get to that, likely 700,000, which developers are trying to hit these days, right? So you want a condo in Langley to be 250,000. Just the bare bones construction, excluding all of the other costs, you're already at 378,000 on the low end. Right? Let's go somewhere in the middle on this, right? Up to 6-story. Let's go like 310. Okay. So 310 plus 170 times 850. Now you're at 408,000 for bare bones construction, just to construct the unit, excluding everything else. If everything and the cost of land, which I forgot to throw in there earlier, right? You have land, taxes, fees, commissions, profits, holding costs. Everything else is on top of this 408,000 that you see here. So the price, I'm not saying it's impossible that it could go down to 250,000, but that's why I did that video, that for that to happen, you need like an apocalypse. Like you need every single thing that could possibly go wrong to go wrong. Let's keep going on this article, okay? This gentleman says, you used to be able to build a building in Vancouver for less than 400 a square foot, and certainly 350 when it comes to above grade, and now you can't. Asked why this is the case, Mullins pointed to policy changes and regulations, including requirements as it relates to building sustainability, such as the change from BC Energy Step Code 3 to Step Code 4, which I believe is just the code that makes it so the building is less susceptible to heat loss. They're just more efficient, right? And building performance that necessitates high performance glazing or a certain level of air tightness. New seismic requirements also have a big impact on construction costs and help explain the gap between Vancouver and BC, as BC is more seismically vulnerable than Ontario and thus has more stringent requirements. The first part of the seismic design that has come also impacts below grade costs, said Mullins. You can see that some of the parking numbers are quite high, and that's due to the excavation and environmental concerns. That seismic code is just coming out and evolving, but it is impacting some of the costs as well. The cost of materials is high, but is also high everywhere else. So the difference in cost between Vancouver and Toronto is better explained by the regulations, says Mullins. He also points to the labor as a key factor between Vancouver and Toronto. You can't forget about labor skill availability, he said. We still have major projects in Vancouver like St. Paul's Hospital, like Oak Ridge Park, that require thousands of skilled operatives, and the availability of labor still impacts some of the key trades like electrical and mechanical. There's a labor element in there too. I'm not saying that Ontario doesn't have a labor issue, but as a result of the slowdown in the condo market, there's more skilled labor available in Ontario than in BC, I would argue. Construction costs have generally still been trending up since the pandemic, says Mullins, but the price escalation has slowed. In recent years in Vancouver, we've seen about a 2 to 4% increase annually, which is relatively consistent for Vancouver. Over the past year or so, the concerns regarding construction costs have also taken a backseat to concerns over other big costs, namely development cost charges, DCCs. More recently, the concerns have, of course, shifted to tariffs and sourcing. I think it's important to state, said Altus Group head of development advisory Americans Colin Doran, that as much as we're talking about differences in construction costs, it's become less important when it comes to whether projects are feasible because you've got all the other factors, government charges, demand, what we can achieve in revenue, that have a bigger impact on whether a project can move ahead or not. So when we talk about where is the price of real estate going, I think a very good indicator of that is what does it cost to replace the product that we have now, right? This is why resale, over a long enough time period will catch up to pre-sale, because if the gap between pre-sale and resale is too big, developers can't launch their projects, therefore they can't hit pre-sales, therefore no new supply comes to market. And when are we going to start feeling the effects of all of this? My best guess would probably be sometime in 2027, halfway through, maybe start of 2028. That's when pretty much everything that's been in the pipeline for years now will finally be dried up and gone. And there will basically be no new supply coming to replace, the supply that's in that pipeline at the moment. So if you want a $250,000 condo, you are going to need, I don't know, I probably wouldn't call it a miracle, because for that to happen, things would have to be absolutely horrible. You would not want to be in Canada if condos were $250,000. That's my opinion. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling real estate in the Fraser Valley, link down in the description. I'm that agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Happy Easter.